welcome back. This is Wayne Madsen with the Wayne Madsen Report. We're coming to you live this February 5th from Washington, D.C., and we're talking about the situation with the people's revolts in North Africa, the Middle East, Tunisia, now Egypt, Yemen, and this is spreading. And I think what probably originally occurred, you hear a lot about the Twitter people and the Facebook people in both Tunisia and Egypt. And George Soros, we know, has had these themed revolutions in Central and Eastern Europe. He also dabbled in Palestine and an attempt in Iran with the so-called Green Revolution. The issue with Soros and his people, they don't know that they played with fire. They tried it in Iran. It failed. They cannot take their Eastern European, Central European soft landing velvet revolutions and apply them to the Middle East. Number one, first reason. The first reason is because, unlike Eastern and Central Europe, people in North Africa and the Middle East, there's high unemployment. There's large young populations who cannot find work. They have college degrees and cannot get work. There is starvation. Prices of food have skyrocketed. We have been subsidizing Egypt with wheat for several decades now, and there has manipulation. People like Soros, the same bankers who impose these austerity measures on countries like Greece and on Spain and on Iceland and on Ireland and on Italy, and now the chickens have come to roost. But the issue with those countries, there is not mass starvation in Europe. Not yet. It may come. So what we have in the North Africa and the Middle East are ticking time bombs. You've got people who actually have not been able to, you've got mass poverty, you've got people in Cairo living in cemeteries. And this is where Soros and his friends miscalculated. Yes, they tried this Twitter, Facebook nonsense in Tunisia, their so-called German revolution, tried it again in Egypt through basically this April the 6th movement with their Lotus revolution, and it failed because when those people got on the streets, it opened up a floodgate, and now we're seeing the repercussions. What has happened in Tunisia and Egypt and in Yemen is a direct result of the manipulation of their economies from outside their countries, and the people who are starving and have no jobs and live in poverty, they don't understand all the mechanisms of the international globalists and the banksters. But they know one thing. They know that Mubarak and Ben Ali, and Mubarak in Egypt, Ben Ali in Tunisia, were living high on the hog. It's now said that Mubarak's worth $70 billion. Where do you get it from? He got it from us. We've been subsidizing this guy for decades. The king of Jordan, he's been living on the CIA payroll for a number of years, and those Saudis, and it's coming to Saudi Arabia, and they know it is. And so we have, and the Israelis, of course, they're always got their fingers in every manipulative operation in that part of the world, and they certainly have been backing Mubarak. The notion that Mubarak is somehow fighting against the Israelis is nonsense. There's a report that he's being guarded by Israeli security guards because he can't even trust some of his own security guards. So that's nonsense. I don't know who's putting that out there. I think I know, but it's disinformation. It's what Soros and his WikiLeaks friends, Julian Assange, they excel at this stuff. But anyway, I want to play this clip. This is from the BBC. And this is an interview talking about how the food prices have been manipulated by the Soros people, the Goldman Sachs of the world, the Citibanks. So let's listen to this. This individual is a rapporteur for UN Committee, and he's talking about how the food prices have been manipulated from outside of these various nations where we see these popular revolts. Let's listen to this clip.
Olivier de Schutter, the UN Special Rapporteur on the right to food, is here in the GMT studio. Welcome, Olivier. Explain to me what is going on here. Is there genuinely a food shortage, particularly a grain shortage, or is this more about profiteering?
There is no shortage. In fact, the harvests of 2010 have been quite good. Among the best of the 5 past years and the third best historically.
So why is wheat at this 2-year high?
I think it shows how dysfunctional the markets are. There are some bad news, bad harvests in Russia, bad harvests in Canada, and the result of this is that countries, speculators, the traders panic, and this creates a situation which is quite irrational, quite detached from the fundamentals of supply and demand, but creates spikes in the prices which impact severely food importing countries.
Well, you call it irrational. Of course, it's not irrational from the point of view of those who want to make big profits from the spike in grain price rises. So are you saying that there are people around the world who are manipulating the market for their own ends?
What is very clear is that since 2005, 2006, a large number of institutional investors, pension funds, hedge funds, have an increased interest in the markets of agricultural commodities and have basically disrupted the normal functioning of the market, in which the physical markets react to indications from the derivatives markets where futures are traded, and the operators today are following signals which are impossible to read because of the impact of these very large financial actors.
So your duty is to figure out how to change the rules that govern the game to ensure that the poorest people in the world do get access to the food that you say is quite clearly out there. So what are you going to do? What do you recommend?
So we need more transparency about these derivatives which are being exchanged in over-the-counter trading, which is completely opaque and impossible to control. And we also need to have better information about stocks, because for the moment speculation is easy because of a great uncertainty about how much stocks each country detains, and we need to have more exchanges of information about this. We need to avoid that operators panic on the market, because this leads to artificial bubbles emerging which are unrelated to the fundamentals of the economy.
Right, so call it an artificial bubble. We know that the UN Food and Agriculture Organization has held this special meeting in Rome today. Is that going to make any difference, or are you in essence saying there are changes needed here which only political leaders at the very top can deliver?
It's very important that the message gets across very clearly that there is no reason to panic and that it is not useful to speculate, because the stocks have been replenished in 2008, 2009. They are quite good and there is no food shortage.
No, but looking forward and ensuring we don't make the mistakes that have been made in the past and which have seen food panics and indeed food riots, you're suggesting the rules of the game have to be changed. I'm saying, how do you get those rules changed?
Well, the US, for example, has introduced in July this year a new legislation which limits the number of positions that financial speculators may have on the futures markets of agricultural commodities. I believe that the EU should do the same. For the moment, there are certain proposals on the table which are not going as far as what has been achieved in the US, but at least shall increase some transparency, the quality of the information, and the possibility to regulate these derivatives markets, which for the moment are completely non-transparent.
Olivier de Schutter, thanks very much for joining us on GMT.
Okay, there you heard it. This was from last year. They're talking about manipulation of the food market, derivatives, that nasty term that these bankers came up with, the people like Soros. So what they were doing last year, part of what happened in Egypt and Tunisia is a direct result of the manipulation of the food prices in countries like Tunisia and Egypt and in Sudan and in Yemen. And now we see that combining with the political issues, getting rid of these fat and happy dictators supported by the CIA, and it is, as Hillary Clinton said, the perfect storm has come about. Now she won't say why. She knows darn well why, but she's not going to say anything, because these are her friends in New York that have been responsible for this, and it's out of control. Soros cannot handle what he may have started with funding these NGOs and this USAID funding for these opposition groups, because now you've got the Muslim Brotherhood stirred up, you've got other opposition parties stirred up, and now we've got the results of what has been done outside of Egypt, outside of Tunisia, no different than what happened in Greece. and no different than what's happening in other countries in Europe. This is a rebellion against the globalization and the mass starvation and the mass poverty that have been dictated by the people who were gathered last week in Davos. It's too bad that the people in Cairo can't get their hands on the people in Davos, because they should all be strung up from the nearest lamppost. And these are the people that manipulate the situation. But in Egypt and in Tunisia and in Greece and in countries around the world, it's coming back to bite them. And what I'm suggesting is what we're about ready to see is a worldwide global revolution against these individuals. And it's about time. It's totally about time. This has dictators around the world shaking in their boots about what's happening in Egypt with an 80 million population, Tunisia much smaller. But what we're going to see, this is going to spread. This is going to spread to Central Asia. This is going to spread into Africa. It's already spreading east into the Middle East. And we will be right back after this break. This is Wayne Madsen from Washington.